But we begin with the debate that you can now see what's happening in America. We can clearly report that we are at the start of the Democrats' 2020 race. Think about it like this. Before this week, most Americans had not heard from any of these Democratic candidates for any extended amount of time. And polls showed that even most self-identified Democrats said they just weren't watching this race yet. Well, that just changed. 20 Democrats marching on these stages this week. And there were some, you may have heard, who criticized the DNC for letting these debates get sort of too large, supposedly. Well, voters didn't seem to mind, because tonight we just got these figures and learned this was the most watched Democratic debate ever. More than 18 million people watching, another 9 million streaming it. And they saw a party that's clearly moving left on immigration and health care. And they saw new faces like Pete Buttigieg, who was addressing a police shooting in his hometown during the debate. And they also saw new approaches with Marianne Williamson speaking the language of spirituality and love and how she thinks Dems should run against Trump. And they saw new alternatives like Senator Warren blending a kind of a wonkish pragmatism with fiery economic liberalism. And then people also saw a civil rights clash that could echo long past last night. Joe Biden found himself today defending his record after that Kamala Harris attack. He was speaking at an event with Jesse Jackson.
I heard and I listened to and I respect Senator Harris. But, you know, we all know that 30 seconds to 60 seconds on a campaign debate exchange can't do justice to a lifetime committed to civil rights. I fought my heart out to ensure that civil rights and voting rights, equal rights are enforced everywhere. It's a constitutional question to protect the civil rights of every single American. And that's always been my position.
That is what Joe Biden looks like on defense. Here is what Kamala Harris looks like setting the tone today. She was not explaining herself. She was doubling down on that debate moment, sharing this picture captioned simply, "That little girl was me," teeing off this moment that many say defined this widely watched debate.
We're going to get to you. Hang on. We're going to get to
stage. I would like to speak on the issue of race. And I will say also that in this campaign, we've also heard, and I'm going to now direct this at Vice President Biden, I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
It was quite a moment. So what was Senator Harris doing? Well, first, she was defining her personal story as the embodiment of America's progress on civil rights. That's a delicate but ultimately accurate political project for her. It's a style perfected by the last Democrat to occupy the Oval Office, Barack Obama. Second, she increased the stakes of Biden's recent gaffe, making it about more than just maybe poorly chosen words, linking his apparent nostalgia for the Democratic caucus's yesteryears to a tangible confrontation over civil rights remedies. Harris arguing it's one thing to talk about civil rights, another to act on the challenges of integration, education, and busing. And third, let's be clear, Harris did what many deaf politicians do. She simplified and defined Biden into a corner, even at the cost of some policy nuance. The civil rights and legal challenges with busing are not binary. Skepticism towards certain busing programs isn't the same as skepticism towards all integration. That's why civil rights leaders like former NAACP leader Derek Bell, who was, by the way, the first tenured black professor at Harvard Law, ultimately concluded that mandatory desegregation and busing did not automatically benefit civil rights, writing that they can be advantageous, irrelevant, or even disadvantageous. That was in 1976. And that debate was roiling long before the Supreme Court narrowed how public schools are even legally allowed to use race to integrate in a 2007 decision, which changes what you can do today, and that didn't come up yet last night. Now, both Harris and Biden know all of that. They know everything I just said because they are skilled and experienced attorneys as well as politicians. And I think they know their positions may not be as far apart as they appeared on the stage last night. But they also appear to both recognize that Harris has the upper hand right now, because with or without that nuance, Harris is arguing that she is going after Joe Biden for something she views as very real, and that she stitched together several of his vulnerabilities, not only his record or his age or the age of his ideas, but her argument that he has an apparent nostalgia for good old days that many in today's Democratic Party would much rather leave behind. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.